Hey, what's up? That's my intro. Hope you guys like it. I'm here with astronomy dork. He's gonna be my guest here on this series called Down the Rabbit Hole. And this is a new series that I'm sort of experimenting with. I want this to be a very open discussion with broad topics ranging from aliens, the deep conspiracy theories, quantum physics, the Illuminati, esoteric knowledge, Gnostic texts, deep doctrine that could be found in the Bible and other apocryphal sources as well. So I wanted to make this series because there's a lot of things that I've been wanting to talk about um, for a long time, and I was sort of so my channel. So I started my channel, and I started down the path of just focusing on conspiracy theories and Bible prophecies. But I've always wanted to dive in deeper into more understandings of our universe and understandings of the Creator and spirituality and quantum physics and all of that, because I think everything ties together in a big kind of circle. So we're going to be getting into that. And so I'm using this new program called StreamYard. I hope I'm doing it right. I'm trying to check to see. I think it's working. So yeah, okay, cool. There's people on here. Yay. I'm testing out the new features here. So uh great. We got some people in. We got Doom, Madvillian, Catherine, and Anne. Hey, what's going on? So this can be a new series. It's not going to be the average uh, kind of distilled shows that I have usually done in the past, because a lot of what I go over, I have to filter a lot of what I say, because even though I do want to give you the entire truth, I know that there's a lot of people that are hesitant um, to start down that path, and there's a lot of people that are very resistive to hearing the truth in its purity as well. And so I would like to kind of start off with what they call is a suspension of belief. So this is going to be sort of the topic. This is what we're going to have to go over in the series of videos called Down the Rabbit Hole. And so suspension of belief is a willing suspension of disbelief. So it's basically you're intentionally kind of putting aside your beliefs. You're putting aside what you've been told and what you've learned throughout life and everything. And it's a way for us to be interactive with you guys, and it's a way where we can openly say things, and we don't have to be afraid of if someone's gonna troll us, or someone's gonna just start calling us names in the comments or whatever. Like, I want it to be a very open discussion, and I just want us to just treat this as if it's the truth, because as you know, I'm someone that really has gone down the rabbit hole, and I have really researched these things out, and I've studied them for over a decade now, even longer than that. I would say about 2 decades. And it it's everything that I've studied has not been disproven, but a lot of it has been proven through my own personal experience, as well as other experiences, which we will go into through these series. So the first topic of this series, it's a very giant topic, but it's something that I've been wanting to bring up for a long time, because basically every rabbit hole that we have in this world, every single rabbit hole, all connects to this one subject. And whether it's a conspiracy theory, whether it's the Illuminati, whether it's spirituality, prophecy, new age stuff, esoteric knowledge. It even entails our history as a civilization, like the Egyptians with the pyramids, and even goes into the mythology of Atlantis and Lemuria and ancient civilizations, right? And it also entails the history of our solar system, the history of our universe, the history of our galaxy. And it's a very, very, very deep knowledge that I'm going to be I'm beginning to share with you guys about who we are and our relationship with the creation as well as the creator, right? So, in order to be able to, listen with a with an open mind and an open heart, we have to humble ourselves and put aside any kind of, you know, these beliefs, which I believe are sort of blockages that create stumbling blocks for truth, for deep truth, because there's a lot of stuff out there that we always have to think. I always say think in layers, right? So every layer of truth we have to peel off, just like sort of like an onion. We have to peel away and peel away and peel away what we thought was the ultimate truth, but we realize, oh, there's another level to this truth, and there's another level, and there's another level. So there's always a new level that we can discover. And so with this series, I have Astronomy Dork here with me. He's a good friend of mine, and he's also a student of the Law of One. So we're going to get into that shortly. And so go ahead and say hi, Astronomy Dork, to everyone that's listening right now.
Hey, everyone who's listening. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. And Future Man, I really appreciate you having me here. It's an honor and a privilege, and I can't wait to dive in head first down deep down the rabbit hole.
Well, thank you for being here. Yeah, so you know, I've what people have been saying, like, okay, we're out of conspiracy theories, right? Like pretty much every conspiracy theory has come true. I also believe that about the biblical prophecies. I believe we're at the end times. This is the end times revelation happening. The end of the Bible is basically being fulfilled, right? Every single prophecy has become fulfilled, as well as every single conspiracy theory has been fulfilled as well. The reason I started my channel in 2017, and I wish I had started it sooner, but I was on a long path of just researching everything I could get my hands on. It didn't matter if it seemed dark or scary or evil or occult or whatever it was, or crazy, or insane or whatever. I had this suspension of disbelief, right? So I basically put all of my past beliefs on hold until I could thoroughly go down each and every rabbit hole and then start to kind of see the bigger picture. And what I realized after going down every single rabbit hole is that every rabbit hole connected. You could say connected at the bottom, where it was a sort of a grand conspiracy, but also a a grand miracle. I saw Not only did I see the darkness playing out, but I also saw the light. I saw the miracles that were happening all over the world. I started opening my eyes to what the creator and the creation really meant. And it was, also going down these rabbit holes, is what I call my, you could call the dark night of the soul, or it was basically my path of like the warrior, right? Like of the spiritual warrior wanting to find the truth at the end of the tunnel. And so I was really on a search for God, which ultimately, uh, the more I learned about this God, whatever you want to call it, the creator or whatever word you like to use, it it really I started to discover more about myself the more I would explore this idea of a god or creator or force, whatever you want to call it. And so I always think of it as, when you're really in the search of God, you're really, in search of yourself as well. So it all kind of works together in that way. And so since we're sort of at the bottom of this rabbit hole, we've already discovered, yeah, there's some sort of darkness playing out in the world right now, but there's also the light side, and we can't forget about the light side that's also playing out. So throughout my channel for these past few years, I've been showing everyone the darkness, because the only way to sort of defeat the darkness is you have to shine a light on it, right? So you have to expose them, expose their dark acts into the light, right? And so that's what I've been doing. I've been calling out everything that they've been doing, right? We've been calling out their mark of the beast system, uh, all these heads of the beast that's going on, and all of it's been coming true. Okay, and I'm not going to get into that. I've already discussed that over and over and over. And if you want to know more about that, then watch my past videos. But um, you know, this is now the side of knowledge that if we're going to be able to defeat this so-called darkness, we have to uh create the light in ourselves. We have to uh you know really shine, right? Like what Jesus says, don't hide your light under a bushel, right? Like we need to shine, and the more that we shine, the more that this darkness dissipates. And so now I believe is the time where we really start discovering who we are and what power we all inherently have as, children of God, as sons and daughters of the living creator, right? And so once we begin to understand that, we start to realize this potential that we have inside of ourselves that's always been there, right? But this darkness likes to cast a shadow over our light. It wants us to be afraid of being who we truly are inside, right? That's what it did with Christ. When Christ came, he was a giant light, right? And everything was against him, right? All the shadows and the darkness were trying to snuff out his light, right? And he gave himself up willingly. He had the power to control this world. He could have done whatever he wanted because he knew in himself that he had this power. And that's what he was trying to teach everyone else. He was trying to teach, you are a son of God, you are a daughter of God, and we all inherently have this power. And so if we start to realize that, then this darkness that's surrounding our planet at this time will start to dissipate, and then we'll start seeing more miracles happen, and we'll start gaining our freedoms back. We'll start living like a true child of God, right? And so that's what I want to go down into this deep rabbit hole, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a very deep subject. uh we call this the law of one. So the law of one is, if I put it up here, the law of one material is a, hold on one second. So the law of one material is a series of 106 conversations called sessions between Don Elkins, a professor of physics and UFO investigator, and this entity known as Ra, which we'll get into, speaking through a channel called Carla Ruckert. Ra states that they are a sixth density social memory complex that formed on Venus about 2.6 billion years ago. Ra says that they are humble messengers of the law of one, and that they previously tried to spread this message in Egypt with mixed results. So, um, yeah, it's a very deep subject, and it's going to be a lot of fun going over it with you, Astronomy Dork. So I've been a what I call a student of the law of one for the past 10 years. And I know that you've recently got into it, but just kind of maybe give a brief introduction of how you got into it and how it's made you feel, and what kind of insights it's given you so far since you started studying it.
Yeah, I would say the first time I really got into the Law of One was thanks to you, and it was back in December of 2019, and I you and I were friends through Twitch, and that's how I first started learning a lot of things that you were throwing out there on YouTube, over the years, and then you brought it up to me one time about the Law of One, and you directed me to this material, and I remember at first I thought to myself, yeah, I'll check it out. And then I forgot about it for about 2 weeks. And there was a lot going on in my life at the time. And then, and then you mentioned it to me again. And I, I remember I had some free time that day, and I picked up the material and I started going through it. And then I was immediately fascinated. And I even started utilizing the keyword search feature there, and just started diving into topics of interest that I had. And I was really blown away at that time. And so I downloaded the audiobook for this material. One of the ways that really works for me to as far as absorbing material is throwing on an audiobook or a podcast at nighttime before bed, and just kind of falling asleep, setting the sleep timer. And then I started doing that, and over the course of weeks and months, I it just I was just blown away at the depth of the material, and we're going to go into that more. But I that's how I really started with this, and I just haven't stopped since.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've been studying it for 10 years, and still every day that I read it, and I do read it basically every day, and every time I read it again, there's new insights, there's new information that even though I've read this passage, 10 times before, I get new meaning out of it every time. And that's how I felt about, the Bible growing up and stuff, and a lot of other scriptures. But the law of one really hits it home for me because, if you think about like the Bible and like those kind of old scriptures, it's very confusing because it's like, first of all, it's a sort of an old style language where we don't use a lot of the same words and the same verbiage that they used hundreds of years ago, right, when they translated it. And also, that's another issue, is that it's been translated over and over and over, and really these translations, they could have, it's not word for word for word. It's a lot of these people who were translating it were saying, hey, I think this is what they were trying to say, and so I'm going to write that down. So it's a very, like, almost like they're playing like like the phone game where one person starts off with the real sentence, and then they keep passing it down and down and down. And so for 100 years, hundreds and hundreds of years, the message eventually gets changed where it becomes our modern day beliefs, right? So there's a lot of beliefs that people have today that aren't congruent with the Bible or scriptures or anything. Like, it's become a phone game where everything's gone lost in translation, and the message has become muddled up, right? And this is why I love the law of one, because it's like basically from the mouth of this being called Ra. And we'll get into the history of Ra. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that name. It's a very, very familiar name that we've kind of all grown up knowing about and hearing about. So we'll get into that history, but it's basically right from their mouth. And if they are truly 2.6 billion years old, like they say they are, um, we put a lot of weight on old philosophers like Plato or Socrates or Aristotle, right? We put a lot of weight in their words, and we think of them as like the epitome of kind of the genius of our humanity. But if these people have been around for 2.6 billion years, I think that they might have something to say. They might have something that we should listen to, right? At least like I said at the beginning of the show, like at least suspend your disbelief in it, okay? At least just try it out for a moment. Open your mind, open your heart, and really start to learn this message, because I think if there was like just maybe a few thousand of us that started to realize what Raw has been trying to tell us, all this time, and this is the Law of One came out in the 1980s. So if we really start to listen and put into practice what they teach, then no one would ever have control over our civilization ever again. We wouldn't be thrown into these whirlwinds where these people that are in control right now, the powers that be, the deep state, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, they wouldn't have no power over us. And the reason that I believe that they do have power over us is because they actually follow a lot of what Ra teaches, right? But Ra teaches that there's basically two paths. There's the left-hand path and the right-hand path. The left-hand path they call service to self. So that's like the selfish, that's the Illuminati, the deep state people, right? They're very selfish. They only care about themselves, right? So their service to self. And then there's the right hand path, which is people that want to serve others, people that look at other people and see them as, beautiful creations under the creator, right? And the problem, though, right now is that our universe, at least in our solar system, is it's so out of balance, right? Like we have most of these people on the left-hand path who are in control of everything that we do in our daily lives. And and you could call them evil or whatever, but they follow this path that um that has a lot of power to it. And what we see on the right side, the right hand path, we like don't have anyone on that side. So you see this is out of balance. Like we don't have anyone on the right side really exercising this sort of power that Ra and the Law of One teaches. And so I'm trying to release this information. At least there's been I have a pretty humble following here on YouTube, but even if 10 of you would get to know this subject and start to exercise and put into daily practice like you've done, Astronomy Dork, you will really start to see that you can affect reality. You can start changing reality. And that's been kind of my big secret in my YouTube channel. Uh, did you want to say something about that?
One thing that just kind of jumps out at me was the word control. And as we continue down this path and down the rabbit hole in future episodes, just jot that word down and remember it. That's a very key component to service to self versus service to others. Just even if you just take a couple minutes today when you have some quiet time, just contemplate the word control. And there's a lot of just by that contemplation, there's going to be some light shed on the shade that has been cast on society.
It's that left hand path. They're
Mhm.
on the path of control. It's control over other people, right? But the right hand path is all about freedom, right? It's about exercising your free will and being a real sovereign entity of the creator, right? And that's where real power lies. And what I was saying about my YouTube channel is that um, it it's been a sort of a well kept secret of mine that I've it was all an experiment in manifesting my reality. I was trying to prove to everyone that I was able to affect my reality and manifest it in what I would thought would be the outcome of that experiment. And so far, everything that I've experimented with affecting my reality, with manifesting it, has come true. Okay? That it always comes back to the 923. And I was telling people this before I put it into my videos before the event happened because I wanted to explain to people that this was it had to be a miracle, okay? And maybe some people won't see it as that. Maybe some people will see it as a coincidence or whatever. But again, they're not suspending their disbelief, okay? They're not opening their hearts and opening their minds to what this miracle has become. And so when I first made my videos about 923, which is the subject of on September 23rd in 2017, this was a long, um, this was a prophecy that was, created long ago. It's found in the book of Revelation about the woman in the sky that would give birth to a man child, right? And this was not like a well kept secret. There was a lot of Christians out there, mainly Christians that were out there, some conspiracy theorists as well that had nothing to do with Christianity, but they were all promoting this day as like sort of the rapture, that Christ would come and they would rapture the church and all that stuff, the end of the world basically kind of scenario. And I didn't follow that though. I was trying to say that if you finished the prophecy, it wasn't just about the woman in the sky clothed with the sun, right? Um, I believe it's Revelation 12, if I'm not mistaken, but um, it was this. They called it the great, basically the great prophecy, right? It's the big prophecy that was supposed to spark the tribulation period, right? And my manifestation of that revelation was that there would be a particle that would come from a black hole in outer space and would fall to Earth on that very day. And think of the impossibility. Think of the astronomical odds of this event occurring exactly how I perceived it to happen. And so it was an experiment of mine to affect our reality, to manifest our reality in the most impossible way that I could think of. But also, it wasn't just a random thought that I had, it was very congruent with all of the research that I had been doing for the past decade, right? And putting all that research together and everything else, you know i I put it out there into the universe and it came true. So and then everything else started to fall like dominoes, right? Like I called the pandemic before it happened. A lot of other stuff I've been calling out, right? Even like the microchip that's coming, people are saying it was a big conspiracy theory. My family was saying I was crazy because that was happening, but now it's becoming into mainstream, right? It's already happening. Those are just the facts. And so I'm saying that had this power to manifest a certain reality, right? So, and this power came from the law of one. And so now we can start diving into what the law of one really is. It's like I said, it's 106 conversations with this entity known as Ra, where they originated on the planet Venus about 2.6 billion years ago. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy, right? If you were to take this at face value, you would think that's insane. I'm churning out the stream. I'm never listening to this wacko ever again. But again, okay, when I first made the video in 2017, there was hundreds of people that called me a wacko then, and then it happened. So maybe let's put a little, like I said, suspend your disbelief for me for one moment, because so far I have not led you down the wrong path, right? The people that have been following me for a while, everything that I put out, right, has come true. And so, because I do my research, I put a lot of prayer and thought into this. And so, yeah, well, we will see. So someone said this reminds me of Scientology. If you guys have any questions or whatever too, I'm on StreamYard, so now I could put up your comments onto the stream, which is pretty cool. Um, Actually, this will remind you of every religion out there, because every religion has branched off from this law of what they call the law of one. Okay, so everything is a piece of this law. Okay, if you think of the world like a giant puzzle, everybody has a piece of the puzzle. Scientology might have a piece of the puzzle. The Christians might have a piece of the puzzle. The Buddhists might have a piece of the puzzle. The Muslims might have a piece of the puzzle. Everyone has a piece. And this is the idea of becoming a unified civilization, which obviously the people on the left that follow the left-hand path, the service to self, they do not want us to become unified, because the more that we are divided up into our little sections, the easier it is to control us. Okay. So that's why they promote this division all the time, right? They always are promoting racism and, genderism and all these just different things, wars and whatever, right? It's all just a play to divide us up. But if we really started to become united, then we would have so much power that we would never be able to be controlled again, right? This sort of aligns with the prophecy of Christ coming back, right? And Christ uh you know being able to lead us for 1,000 years, right? Like the age of enlightenment. So for us to gain back that power, where we have 1,000 years of peace, 1,000 years of prosperity, 1,000 years of us being unified and working together, right, and light. And so that's what my goal is to push our civilization into that reality. I want to manifest that reality, but I need everyone's help to do that, right? I can't just do it on my own. We have to have as many people on board with this and creating and manifesting this reality. That's why a lot of people are stuck into that fear type of mindset, because the fear mindset keeps you trapped, keeps you in a prison of your own mind, where you're not able to escape out of it. I know a lot of people that are like that. There's a lot, and just like one little example is people's fear of scarcity, right? You guys have heard of what's it called, that movie The Secret or whatever, the law of attraction. It is a real principle of the universe. Whatever your mind is sort of focused on and you're giving your energy and attention to, then that reality sort of manifests itself, right? So I always like to use the example, a very simple example, like if you think you're dumb, or if you think you're ugly, or if you think you're not confident, or whatever you think you are, you do become, right? Like if you're depressed, then you will stay depressed as long as you believe that you are that thing, that label that you've created for yourself, that prison, that box that you've surrounded your mind in and entrapped your mind where it's not open anymore and it doesn't believe in anything else than what you have put the label on, and stamped it as your label, as I am this, I am that, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, blah blah blah, I'm fat, I'm lazy, whatever you want to say, then that reality manifests, for you. So I'm trying to break us out of those mindsets where we could be on the positive spectrum of things and we can start manifesting our world that we want to create. Because right now, uh the left hand side, the dark side, the service to self side, they want they want us to fear everything. You see all this fear being pushed out there left and right? Like all it is, every 24/7, every single day is fear, 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 fear. Fear of this virus, fear of famine, fear of scarcity, right? Fear of each other, fear of being raised, having a hate crime or whatever. It's all this just constant, constant, constant fear. And I think of it, it's all a bunch of hogwash. It's all just a bunch of lies. Like, you don't need to believe in that reality. That reality is not true. Okay. But if enough people believe in it, the darkness realizes this power of manifestation. So that's why they spend hundreds of billions of dollars on this media, right? They have purchased all these media outlets, and they constantly bombard you in advertisements and billboards and whatever it is, to constantly be in that fear type of mindset. And so, if we're stuck in that mindset, then we'll never be able to progress. And so, if we want to start manifesting the world and how we see it, we have to sort of defeat this darkness. Okay. Um, so, anyways, let's get started on this long journey. This episode is probably just going to be about the sort of the history of Raw. Like I said, there's 106 sessions, and so when I read this, what the law of one, it it hit me to my very core. Like I said, I've read every scripture out there. I went down all these different rabbit holes, and this was the one thing that I'm like, wow, uh this is the most truthful thing that I've ever come across. It's the most pure, unfiltered truth that comes straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Okay. So this is straight from an entity known as Ra, that is as close to the creator, to God, whatever you want to call him or it or whatever. It's as close to the truth as possible in our world today. So I always thought of this material, the law of one material, as sort of the modern, if we had a modern day Bible, because you have to think, like, our Bible is like what, 1,000 years old. Like, maybe it's time, maybe God thought, hey, maybe it's time to have some new information for once. Maybe he thought, hey, uh we see this end times coming, maybe they need a little extra help, to get through this time of tribulation, right? And it's really helped me. I know it's helped you, astronomy dork. And it's put me on that level where I am not afraid of anything. I can truthfully say that fear rarely ever enters my mind, because I have become this realization that I am part of this beautiful, miraculous universe, and that the creator is really not that far from me. And this message has really put it into perspective. So I would like to share this with you. And if you go down the sessions, you could, like, I went from session 1 to 106 and I read it. It took me about 6 months to read through all of it, and I would really try to I really want to promote it to you guys to go down that rabbit hole and really just read it yourself, okay? And from everything I've read, I cannot find one inkling of any falsity whatsoever inside of it. Like, even if we take the Bible, I can find verses in there that are just kind of weird and far out there, and I'm like, I don't know about this. This doesn't make any sense. But that has never happened when I've read the Law of One. Everything has made complete sense and has opened and expanded my mind in so many different ways, in an infinite amount of ways. So Ra was able to channel through these people. So, if you think of like a prophet, right? Like, what does a prophet do? A prophet talks to God, right? And so this is what basically how these people talked to Ra in the 1980s, from 1981 to 1984. And so Ra says, when they first, this is the very first session, 1.0. So Ra says, I have not spoken through this instrument before. We had to wait until she was precisely tuned as we send a narrow band vibration. We greet you in the love and in the light of our infinite creator. We have watched your group. We have been called to your group, for you have a need for the diversity of experiences in channeling which go with a more intensive, or as you might call it, advanced approach to the system of studying the patterns of the illusions of your body, your mind, and your spirit, which you call seeking the truth. We hope to offer you a somewhat different slant upon the information which is always and ever the same. The confederation of planets in the service of the infinite creator has only one important statement. That statement, my friends, as you know, is all things, all of life, all of the creation is part of one original thought. So this sums it all up, okay? Like, we could stop right here. This would be all you need to know. This is basically the Law of One, and it's very, very brief summary. And I'm in the process of creating a new video, which I've shared with. I've told you guys that I've been in the process of creating this video, and it's about, the video is called Proof of God, and it's about proving the existence of a creator using only science, logic, and math. And it's very funny, or it's very, you could say coincidental or whatever you want to call it, miraculous, that it talks about this one original thought, because in my video, there's a mathematician called Robert Grant, and he has discovered, using only math, that everything, all of reality, all of physics, all of math, all of creation originates from one, what he calls one thought. Okay, so they're just talking about the philosophy of it, but he has actually proven it without a doubt that everything sort of originates from this, what he calls a one thought. And look forward to my video. I'm probably about 80% done with it right now, and I think it's going to open a lot of eyes. I hope it will, because I believe, with these this was only a discovery that he made last year, so it's very recent that he was able to prove this using only math. And it's going to be It's gonna be a really good video. It's about 3 hours long, so it's a long video, but I think it's ultimately gonna prove that there is an infinite creator out there. So, people can stay ignorant all they want, but at least we'll know, the people that watch the video, that without a doubt, like, we don't even need to have faith anymore. Like, we can know without a shadow of a doubt that there is this infinite source of everything, of all of creation that's out there, and that it's there for us. It's been, a part of my life. I'm sure it's been a part of your guys' life, and I've seen miracles, things that cannot be explained scientifically, happen in my life. And so I know from my personal experience, but now I have irrefutable proof, just using, math and science, that there is this infinite source that is very intelligent, and that's creating everything that we see around us. Okay. So, and then again, I like what Ra continues on. He kind of expounds on this a little more. Like I said, Ra could just stop right there, and that's enough. That's enough for us to contemplate for the rest of our lives. So, Ra goes on to say, let us for a moment consider thought. What is it, my friends, to take thought? Took you then thought today? What thoughts did you think today? What thoughts were part of the original thought today? In how many of your thoughts did the creation abide? Was love contained? Was service freely given? You are not part of a material universe. You are a part of a thought. You are dancing in a ballroom in which there is no material. You are dancing thoughts. You move your body, your mind, and your spirit in somewhat eccentric patterns, for you have not completely grasped the concept that you are part of the original thought. So I've always said it's this dance that we have, right? It's it's this we're just vibrating lights in this big ballroom that we call the universe, right? And we're all playing out these little parts in this giant play, that we call life. And it's it's very it's a very humbling experience, and it's very wonderful experience. It's a beautiful world that we live in, and I hate that this world has fallen victim to that fear cycle, to the left-hand path, to the darkness, where all the darkness wants to do is cover up our light, you know? It wants us to lie down and give up. But we are just dancing light, okay? If you really break us down to the core of what we are just light. And science has already proven this, that everything is made of light, right? If you break down reality, at the very, very bottom, the very foundation is what? Light, photons, right? Photons are light, and photons create all of the matter that we see around us. So if we stripped away all this illusion, we would really just be light that's vibrating, um, with sound, or whatever you want to call it, and that's us. So Ra's saying we're dancing lights, and which makes complete sense. And of course, they will begin to expound more upon it. But this is a very good way to start to think of our lives. Like, we're the light. What did Christ say? I am the light and the light of the world. Whoever follows me, the light, shall have, eternal life. And so that's what the message has always been, is that we are the light, and we need to follow the light, right? And become more light. And we need to light up this darkness around us. Okay. Each one of us has that power. Wherever you are in this world, you can affect your house. First of all, we can affect the people around us, right? That's very easy to tell. But did you know you could start affecting the town you live in, or the city that you live in, or the state that you live in, or the country that you live in? It all depends on how much light you can radiate to others, okay? And this has always been a constant theme in my life, um, that the people that I've that the people that have surrounded themselves around me, they always go on to be successful and they have great lives and whatever, because it's about radiating that light to everyone around you. The service to self people, the darkness people, they want to just take all the light for themselves, right? Because they don't realize, like, there's an infinite amount of light. It's all light, but they want to capture it and put it into a bottle, right? They want to capture the light and they don't want you to have it. That's why they have all of these secret societies set up where only they know the truth. And they don't want you to know the truth. They want you to fear the truth. That's why these Christians and whatnot, they only stay in their little box, because they're only allowed to stay in this box, because they know if they actually broke out of it then and started to realize the grander truth of everything, then they would start to lose power. And that's with every religion, not just the Christians. I use them as an example because I'm the most familiar with that religion. So yeah, it's a it's a great concept to think of us as we're just light. And so if you're light, that means you are part of Christ, right? You are a part of that miracle of life, and that we have the power inside of ourselves. What did Christ always say? The kingdom of God is within you, okay? He did not say it was elsewhere. He didn't say it was somewhere else. He said the kingdom of God is within you. Okay? You are the kingdom. And this will start to make more sense as we go along with this stuff. And feel free to uh, pop in whenever you want, Astronomy Dork. I know I'm just rambling on. I do that a lot. So if go ahead and interrupt me whenever you want.
They're wonderful rambles, and it actually reminded me of a quote from one of Ra's students, an NC known as Aaron, and he said one time, "In life, we are both actors and audience." So let's think about that for a moment. If you pass someone in the office or in your home or or on the street, and they're in a bad mood, I mean, you can feel that negative vibration right away. But what about the opposite of that? What if someone's having a great day and they're loving life right now, and you go back and you walk by them, or you're in their vicinity? I mean, you can sense that as well, and it changes. I know from speaking to myself, it changes my entire outlook on the day, of the moment, and it makes me want well, I mean, I start to feel happy myself, but then when you really think about it, that's the kind of change that we can impact in our lives, that we can put out there in this world. Oh, we all have the spark of the divine within us, and if you believe that humans evolved over time, then what's the next step for us? If if we're gonna evolve even more, then that spark is gonna grow. It's gonna manifest. It's gonna radiate more brightly, and a lot of this raw contact encompasses that. It's a philosophy that teaches us what the potential for our next steps can be.
Exactly. It's I like that concept of we're all kind of a sort of a spark, right? And if we all group together, that those sparks would create a giant fire. But if we're all separate sparks, none of us will light up. So the more of us that group together and the more of us that put our minds to manifest this new reality that we want, this reality of peace, right? What Christ promised us, this 1,000 years of peace, this 1,000 years of enlightenment, right? Like I want us to travel the universe, but that's never going to happen as long as we're starting wars with each other, killing each other down here, hating on one another. It's just never going to happen. I don't know how many times our civilization has been laid to waste over the thousands and thousands of years. And I know maybe some people have believed that, okay, our civilization is only X amount of years old or whatever. But every year it seems that there's a new discovery where we kind of find what they call the missing link, right? Where we see, oh, there's this human remains that we found that's actually 250,000 years old, and then they'll find another one that's like, oh, actually this one was like 300,000 years old, and they keep discovering new and new, missing links, right? And so really, it's easier just to say, hey, we have no idea, okay? And that's fine. That's fine to admit that we just don't know. And at least that's a starting point. At least it's not putting our minds in a box, in a prison where we're like, okay, this is our belief is that we're only, 7,000 years old as a civilization. And so anything beyond that concept, I'm just going to just ignore and just, be afraid of. Right. But like, once we start to just, once we, I always tell people like, just start at nothing, okay? Pretend that you know nothing, okay? Like Christ said, you have to become like as a child to um to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And I think we could expound on that in a lot of ways, where it's just as a child they have a very open mind. Their mind is like a sponge, right? And everything they just soak up. And there's a lot of us today who have hardened our hearts and hardened our minds, where we just will not accept anything beyond the well established beliefs that humanity teaches us. But I'm saying there's so much more out there that we're only beginning to tap into. And this this subject, the law of one, is actually, it's going to open a lot of our minds. And so just to continue on with the law of one, like I said, people that maybe have just joined, we are under the impression that we are going to suspend our disbelief, okay? Just pretend, just open up your mind for a minute, okay? And just soak up what we're saying. You can think about it later and be like, okay, that guy's full of crap or whatever. But like, just for now, at least hear it, at least humble yourselves enough just to maybe hear something. Maybe you will gain some truth, okay? So just try it out if you're not ready to, to humble yourselves. Just try it out for a minute. Maybe you'll learn something. So the questioner continues on. So this 106 sessions is just basically these three people, this group of people, and they're just asking raw questions, and raw is just answering their questions. Okay, so this guy, or the next question was, do all serve the infinite creator in basically the same way, or do some specialize in some particular types of service? And Ra states, all serve the one creator. There is nothing else to serve, for the creator is all that there is. It is impossible not to serve the creator. There are simply various distortions of this service. Okay. So again, and like I said, you could take any paragraph, any sentence that they speak, and we could spend another hour or two just expounding on that one sentence, because that's how profound everything that they say is. Just you could study it for as long as you want, and you will always be finding new and new information about it. And so to me, That's saying, so if we think of the world, and I'm going to prove this in my next video called Proof of God, that everything is a part of uh this creator, the light. Okay, what is Christ? What was the word that created everything? Christ was the word. Christ is light. Okay, so the light created everything. We already know that scientists have already proven this. So if you're not already to that level, it's already been proven, so you can't even disbelieve it. There's nothing that you can say that would make me disbelieve it, because it's already been proven by science, right? And so to me, people say, "Oh, it's science, it's evil, blah blah blah." But like, I think that science is actually proving the existence of a creator rather than disproving it. Every uh, leap in science is another leap to discovering who we truly are. So I always say spirituality and science needs to mix together to really start to understand the truth. And it's sad that, again, like this darkness does, it will separate and divide us up. So we have the camp of the religious people, and then on the other side we have the camp of the scientists, right? Science and everything. But if they merged together, they would be so much closer to the truth of everything. So we already know from science that light is everything, right? There's just everything is made from the light, and the light is, you can call, the creator. So really, it comes down to understanding, is this light intelligent? Is it, uh, does it have the possibility of being intelligent and super intelligent? Which, again, I wish my new video was out, because I'm proving it in my new video just using math and science and physics, um, that this light is actually super intelligent. And Ra calls this light infinite, um, or intelligent infinity. So that's basically what they kind of summarize it as, is that it's this, if we think of infinity, if we start to open our minds to what infinity really is, then we start to realize how infinite we are. This is what Christ realized. This is what Christ came to teach us, that we are infinite beings, and that we are made of the light, and that we can all become a part of that light. And so, um, to continue on with what Ra was saying, I'm kind of taking sessions out of order and context. You're going to have to dive in deep into these sessions. There's 106 of them. It's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be very fulfilling in your life. I promise you that. But I'm just picking up some history, some historic passages where Ra is trying to explain to these people the history of Ra and the history of the universe and things like that. So the next question is, then the law of one, and then the law of one is truly universal in creating the progression toward the eighth density or octave in all galaxies. Is this correct? And Ross says, this is correct. There are infinite forms, infinite understandings, but the progression is one. So it's hard to kind of wrap our mind around that. Like I always say, you got to start thinking in layers. All right. Um, and let me show you just real quickly kind of what I mean by that. So if we think of, they kind of separate reality in what they call densities. And I go into this in one of my videos, the Matrix video, where I say the Matrix explains 3D, 4D, and 5D. So there's, in reality, there's like 8 different levels. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if we think of like our reality in different layers, it's kind of like, um, we have to climb a ladder, like Jacob's ladder, to find the reality, the truth of everything. So Ross says, so this would be the first, the second, the third layer, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, And sorry, I'm really bad at drawing. Um, this is level. So at some level, some people are. So most of all of us are here on the third, what they call the human experience, where we have a sentience, right? Like we have free will. We're sentient beings, right? We're here on this level. Okay. So there's a lot of truth in this level, but you know, there's some people that say, okay, this is all the truth I need is in the third level, where we just kind of find out some basic stuff about our universe and whatnot. But we're starting to penetrate the veil, right? So there's this veil here, and people are starting to realize this fourth level. And this fourth level is what you could call like quantum physics, right? People think that, so we had the standard model of physics down here, right? And the standard model of physics is kind of funny because every year they're like, oh, a new discovery has broken the standard model of physics. Even on September 23rd in 2017, when the black particle fell out of the black hole, they're like, oh, this new particle is gonna it breaks it makes helps or it makes us rethink all of everything we've learned about the standard model of physics. So we have the standard model here, and they've separated quantum physics level as like almost like two different studies, right? So we have the standard model here, and then we have start to go into the quantum world up here. But really, this is just the next step, okay? So like the things that here that we thought were true are true at this level, okay? But now we are evolving into this level where things like quantum physics and quantum states of matter, all of that sort of stuff, where we're realizing light, light makes up the entire universe and all that stuff. We are now breaking through into this realm of reality, and it's sort of like um a lot of people call it like a Christ consciousness, or it's just a new way of thinking, right? So in this way of thinking, we realize that there's laws of the universe that govern everything, okay? And Ross says that the law of one is the one law, the law of God, right? The creator. But then every other law is just a branch off of that one understanding, which we will go into. But like I'm saying, this is just a very simple explanation of we're starting to break through into the other level. So we're sort of in a transitionary period where we are evolving as humans. Okay. So there's a lot of people stuck down here on the third level, and a lot of people are comfortable down there, you know? If we think of this of like a mountain, right? We think of it as a mountain or like a pyramid or something, and we're all trying to get up to this level, which is like what Ross says, a um basically we're becoming the creator, like we're becoming at least more understanding of what the creator is and whatnot. So we have many layers to go. So a lot of people, if you think, I always say, if you think that you know all the answers, then you won't ever get any more answers. So this is kind of the trap here in 3D, is that people think that they have all the answers and that they don't need any more answers, right? We have the Bible, we don't need any more Bible, we don't need anything else. We don't need any more truth. We don't need God to talk to us anymore. We have it all. We don't need anything else, right? It's a very lazy way of thinking in my mind. It's you're becoming lazy in your evolution. You want to keep going up the levels. There's always more truth to understand. There's always ways that we can evolve ourselves, and obviously as a civilization right now, you can totally see that we're sort of like almost de-evolving in a lot of ways, but the path up to the top of the pyramid. It's a journey, and um, but some people, like I said, some people just like being on the third level, and that's fine. But again, we're starting to pierce the veil, where we're starting to get more and more of the next level. And so I believe the next level is sort of, this will be our breakthrough as a civilization. When we break through it, this is when we get into like space and stuff, right? Because the only way we're going to be able to do it, and I honestly don't think, I think Elon Musk and Tesla, SpaceX and all that stuff, I think it's mainly just a bunch of BS. Like it's basically a giant virtue signal to humanity to like basically take all your money and pretending to make it to Mars or whatever. Like it's a giant virtue signal, but they need to start, if they really want to go there, they have to start realizing this geometry, what people call sacred geometry, which I'm going to be showing you a lot of in my next video, of how this geometry shapes our world and how it shapes the universe. And this is what Ra calls intelligent energy. So if we want to make it to the next step, which I believe is outer space, which I don't know how long it's going to be. It could be 20 years from now. It could be 100 years from now. It could be 500 years from now. Like, we don't know. It depends on how quickly we're going to be able to merge spirituality and science together, because I think that's, without that realization taking place, at least like maybe half of us making it to this level, like I just don't see us ever, at least for a while. But like I said, I'm trying to accelerate our knowledge. I'm trying to accelerate our evolution by, if we start to understand these things, then we can, if you've ever heard of like the 100th monkey effect, basically the theory goes like, if one monkey, say like one monkey discovered fire, okay, out of 100 monkeys, then soon another monkey would discover fire and another monkey would discover fire, and they would all learn it, right? So I'm the 100th monkey trying to teach you all, like, this is how we evolve our mind. This is how we evolve our spirit, how we evolve as a species. Otherwise, if we don't evolve ourselves, we're going to be stuck on the third level. And I don't want to be stuck on this third level anymore. It's obviously not very fun down here. I mean, it is fun in a way, but let's go next. I'm a gamer, like you got to think of it like a video game. Like, you don't want to be stuck on the first level boss, forever. Like, you want to go to the next boss and the next level. You want the next challenge and everything. And so I think we're ready to do that. So that's kind of the visual that I was trying to show you guys. Let me get back to the law of one. If anyone has questions, just pop it up in the chat, and then I'll post it on the screen, so then we could go over it. Let's see. So yeah, so all serve the one creator. There's nothing else to serve, for the creator is all that there is. It is impossible not to serve the creator. So you can contemplate on that for a while. Like, think of that for a second. It is impossible not to serve the creator. So if we break that down a little bit and think about it, so the creator created everything, right? So would everything that he created be serving the creator? Now, that it would sort of like not make sense to some people at a certain level, because you would say as an argument that, hey, but God created humans, right? And then there's humans that go against God, or don't serve him, and all these things. But then once we start to expound upon what like free will is, and what the law of one is, then we begin to realize like this is all part of the game. If we weren't given free will, then how would how would we ever progress? If there was no evil in the world, then how could there be good? Like, I always say that evil brings out the best in good. That's why there's evil. When people say, what, if God existed, then he wouldn't let evil happen. He wouldn't let all these atrocities happen or whatever. But really, when you start to see, like, if you step back for a moment and realize maybe it takes a year or 100 years for it to take effect, but you realize that there's this progression of humanity where we do this sort of evil stuff, but then there's heroes that arise, and then they help evolve us into the next step of humanity. But if there wasn't any catalyst of evil, what we call evil, then how would there ever be good? If it was all just like the Garden of Eden and we're all just sitting around naked and just eating fruit all day, like, what? I guess that could sound like a good thing, but then as a gamer myself, like, that's not very fun. That wouldn't be a very fun game. We need the challenge. We need that evil boss to defeat, right? What's the best games have the best bosses. Whatever, people think of as like the best games, like, always have the best bosses. So that's what the way I like to think about it. And so continuing on, the questioner then asked, and then the law of one is truly universal in creating the progression toward the eighth density or octave in all galaxies. Is this correct? Ross says, this is correct. There are infinite forms, infinite understandings, but the progression is one. If we go back to like that idea, I always use the example of the mountain. Hold on 1 second. I always use the example of the mountain of enlightenment, right? So here's the mountain. There's the ground. Here's like the peak, right? So here's the peak. And you always think of enlightenment. So like we could even think of it as the layers, right? So like layer one, there's people down here that just want to camp out, right? They just want to camp down here at the bottom. They look at the mountain and they're like, oh my God, that's impossible. There's no way I can ever make it up the mountain. So then they just stay down here, and that's fine. Maybe down here there's a purpose for them. Maybe there's a hero that comes along and is like, I'm going to make it up this mountain. And so he interacts with the people down here, and they give him food and water, and they sell him, all his equipment to start to make it up the mountain. So these people still have a purpose, even at this low level, right? And so the hero starts to go up the mountain, but then he can decide, like, there's different paths going up the mountain. So you decide, which path am I going to take going up the mountain? You could think of these paths as like different religions. So Ross says that, there's infinite paths to understanding this progression. So when people are like, oh, my religion is the only truth, blah, 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 like, we're really starting to limit ourselves of what the truth can actually be. If we start to take other people's truth, maybe not everything that religion, maybe not everything resonates with us, but we could at least gain some truth from it, right? Like, I'm sure you could look at the Buddhists and like take some good lessons away from them, right? Like, you could look at the Christians and you could probably take some good lessons away, right? You could probably even look at the Hindu religion or the Muslims religion and be like, hey, maybe there is like one thing that I could take from them that might help me along my journey, my path of enlightenment. And so the hero starts up, on any one of these paths, or he could find his own path and go up the mountain, right? But then there's some people, say they get up, right? They're on their journey of discovery, their journey of enlightenment, and then they hit a plateau, and they're here, and they're like, hey, we made it, we made it up. And they can't see the mountain or they can't see the peak, but because it's clouded over, right? There's just a big cloud, and they can't see. They actually think that they're at the top. These are the people that are like, I have all the answers. I don't need anything else. Like, why do I need to go? Why do I need to study anything else? I already know everything. What, like, there's nothing else, right? Like, I made it up the very peak. Isn't this the peak? Like, is this the peak of my existence, the peak of my humanity, right? And so they get stuck here. And they might think themselves, very smart, very intellectual, very spiritual kind of people, but in reality, they're just stuck on a peak of the mountain, because getting past this illusion, right? This cloud, it's hard to get past this part, right? Because they think that they see the sun shining over here, and they think, oh, it's hitting the peak, and the rays are hitting it, and this must be the top. But there's even fewer people that actually break through and then make it to the very top of the mountain. And then these are the people that can now see, everything, right? These people can see all the way down, all around themselves, right? This is their line of vision. They can see the people down here doing what they do. They could see the people here trying to make up their own, paths, or following a different path. And they could see the people on the peak, right? They have a full 360-degree awareness, right? And this is what we're shooting for. We're shooting for the very top, okay? And this is what the law of one is teaching us, is that there is many paths to make it up. There's infinite forms, infinite understandings, but the progression is one. That's what the law of one means, is that we make it to the top. Like, we make it to the creator eventually, right? Like, we'll make it there eventually. We just have to keep going up that mountain. Then Ra continues on. It says, consider, if you will, that the universe is infinite. This has yet to be proven or disproven, but we can assure you that there is no end to yourselves, your understanding, what you would call your journey of seeking, or your perceptions of the creation. Okay? So we'll stop there again. It's, like that analogy of the mountain, it's playing out right here. Like, we have to start thinking of ourselves as infinite beings. Okay, we're eternal, right? So we're not just going to make it to the next level and be like, oh, we know everything, there's nothing more to learn. So if that's the case, then there is no more progression. Progression stops. We're damned. We don't progress any further. So I always like to think of myself as an eternal, infinite being, and that this life here on Earth that I am experiencing right now for myself is just a small little chapter. It's just a small chapter in my giant book of who I am as an infinite soul of existence. And once we start to expand our consciousness to that level of infinity, then we will always remain finite. Infinite beings are creators, where we can make it to that level of where we at least begin to understand how the creator creates and how the creator thinks and how we could become a part of that process, right? Like we're all on that journey to understanding. We're all trying to get to enlightenment, and it's going to be an infinite journey. Well, it won't stop. You'll get to the next level, and you wouldn't be able to, like, you would want to just keep going and going and going. Like, at least that's how I feel. Like, and we have to start thinking of ourselves as infinite people. So what you do now is going to affect you for the next 1,000 years, 100,000 years. Okay. And if you start to think of it, of life in that way, then you're on the right path, because that's the service to others path, the right hand path, where once we start to realize that, hey, like, have you ever had like deja vu of like, hey, I've met that person before, or you see someone and you're like, that person just has such a familiar feeling for me, like I've met them before, but like it almost feels like a past lifetime, like a long time ago, and I haven't seen them forever, and I have this weird feeling that like I just know them. Like that's how I feel a lot of the times in my life, where I come across people and I'm like, and I don't even doubt it anymore. I just say, I've probably have known you at some other path, some other lifetime. And once you start to realize that we'll probably end up running into each other again, that kind of law of karma comes to mind, where if you've hurt that person in a previous lifetime and now you're running into them again, then it's like a weird feeling, right? So all of our actions are always affecting everybody all the time. It's always affecting the universe. And once we start to take responsibility for our actions and start to become accountable for them, then the world starts to work more in harmony with everything. Like right now, you can see in our world that nobody's taking accountability for their actions, right? Nobody's taking responsibility for what they believe in, what they're doing, what they're thinking, what they're saying. Everyone's just lying right now. Everyone's just being hypocrites. Everyone's saying something and doing something else. Hey, what's up, Corpy? And yeah, if you guys have any questions, just drop it in the chat and I'll post it up. But it's just, like, if we start to put these laws into practice, then we start to evolve as part, we evolve ourselves as well. We start to evolve humanity around us as well. So to continue on with what Ra is saying, he says, that which is infinite cannot be many, for manyness is a finite concept. To have infinity, you must identify or define that infinity as unity. Otherwise, the term does not have any referent or meaning. In an infinite creator, there is only unity. You have seen simple examples of unity. You have seen the prism, which shows all colors stemming from the sunlight. This is a simplistic example of unity. In truth, there is no right or wrong. There is no polarity, for all will be, as you would say, reconciled at some point in your dance through the mind body spirit complex, which you amuse yourself by distorting in various ways at this time. Like I said, it's a game, it's a dance. We're just dancing lights in this place that we call the universe. This distortion is not in any case necessary. It is chosen by each of you as an alternative to understanding the complete unity of thought, which binds all things. You are not speaking of similar or somewhat like entities or things. You are everything, every being, every emotion, every event, every situation. You are unity. You are infinity. You are love, light, light, love. You are. This is the law of one. So, again, they expounded on the law of one a little bit more to help us understand the concept. So it says, you are everything, every being, every emotion, every event, every situation. So, like, let's try to apply that to maybe some of the beliefs that we have. So, like, even take Christ, for example. What did Christ say? He said, love, love others as I have loved you, right? He said to forgive others. He said to, to, if you found someone, naked, then you would clothe them and then you would help them, right? Because he understood this concept that you are everything, you're every being, everything, you're unity, right? And so if you start to realize that, you start to realize, oh, that person that I hurt is actually, I'm hurting myself, because every person is like a mirror. Every person that we see is a mirror of how we can start to realize who we are. And so the more people you hurt, the more you become hurt yourself, you know. And that, you could take a lot of examples from that. You could take war, for instance. Like, war, obviously a lot of people get hurt, right? But what's the positive that comes out of that? What all we see from war is negative things that come from it, right? So the more that we uh go into this process of war, like what we see even today, like there's a lot of talk about war with Russia and whatever, but like, what is it going to accomplish? You could even look at the war in the Middle East, right? What did we do for 20 years there? We destroyed people, we destroyed families, we killed millions of people, right? Innocent or not. And what did it accomplish? We are back to the very beginning. It was a circle, right? And nothing at all was accomplished by it. So we have to start taking these laws of karma. We can't just go around doing hurtful things to this world and to everything else. Like, even you could take, what they call climate change, right? And you say, hey, our actions today are affecting our future 100 years from now. And so if you care about your children and all that stuff, like, you would start to change who you are today. And that's this concept playing out in front of us, that we are all a part of this. We are unity, right? And what our actions do become like ripples in time, right? So every action that we perform here is like a ripple that continues to expand and expand throughout all of time. So that's the concept that we're trying to learn here, is that we're infinite beings, and that we are also all very closely tied together. Okay. And that knot is, you can call it love, you can call it light, you could call it unity, but we're all in this one big giant, uh, this big giant ball that we call the universe, and we're all just dancing lights in it, and we're having a good time, but maybe some people aren't. Um, so continue on. How you doing, Astronomy Dork? You good? I
Yeah,
was
I'm good on
rambling
my side.
still.
I'm great on my side. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, continuing on. So another question. The question asks Raw, can you give me some kind of history of your social memory complex and how you became aware of the law of one? And Ra goes on to say, the path of our learning is graven in the present moment. There is no history as we understand your concept. Picture, if you will, a circle of being. We know the Alpha and Omega as infinite intelligence. The circle never ceases. It is present. The densities we have traversed at various points in the circle correspond to the characteristics of cycles. First, the cycle of awareness. Second, the cycle of growth. Third, the cycle of self-awareness. Fourth, the cycle of love or understanding. Fifth, the cycle of light or wisdom. Sixth, the cycle of light, love, love, light, or unity. Seventh, the gateway cycle. Eighth, the octave, which moves into a mystery which we do not plumb. So that was like the drawing that I was given for you guys, that the different levels of understanding. Let me show it again. So again, we have the different levels: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then there's the eighth, right, which is mysterious. So hold on one second. Let me this over.
Great 8, by the way. And one thing that we're gonna dive into down the road too, in this rabbit hole, is the correlation with energy centers as it goes 1, 2.
Oh, they're not ready for that.
No, but it's exciting, and I will not jump the gun though.
There's many levels, and we're going to try to take you there. So Rob was saying that. So our path. So okay, let me start over here. So he says, picture, if you will, a circle of being, right? So here we have the circle, and this thing can mean so many different things. This, if we can meditate on this concept for hundreds of years, okay, and we will continue. Just this simple picture here, we can meditate on it for forever, and you will always find a new insight to what this means, okay? And then let me tell you. So okay. So time, again, this circle could represent time, right? Because what is time? Time is infinite, right? The only thing that can represent infinity is a circle. A circle could represent everything and nothing, okay? Just like a 0 represents nothing, but then a circle can represent everything as well. It could encompass all of creation. If you even look at what's the background radiation of the universe, there's let me show you this, guys. Okay. There's the first light of the universe. So sorry, it's so small. Okay. So this is all science has discovered. They say, like, this is the universe, okay? This is the entire universe, at least from what we can observe, okay? What does it look like? A giant circle, right? And what's in here? Time, or light. You could call it light. So what was the first thing in Genesis? God moved, right? God moved across the deep, right? The void. And so that created the vibration. And what's the first product of that vibration is light, okay? Just like what Dewey Larson physics states, is that all is motion, and the first product of that motion is light. So like I said, the Bible is really an ancient scientific book. At least, the prophets, maybe they were getting their message from God, or inspiration or something, but they were at the very basis of understanding this concept, okay? And so here we have light, right? So we had the circle, the 0, right? And then this light here, it represents the 1, okay? So here is the 1. You see it's a line. So circles and lines, right? Circles and lines and circles. And just like a computer code that we use, what does a computer code use? A binary code that's circles and ones. Like I said, you can take so many things from this concept of just a circle and expound on it in so many ways. You could even say A circle turned on its side. So here's a side view of a circle is actually what? A 1, right? So you got a 0 and a 1. And what else can you do with a circle? You can twist a circle in the middle, right? And then what do you make? The infinity symbol, right? So there's the circle twisted. And so here's the present, right? Here's the past. Here's the future, okay? Just like what Einstein discovered, is right? Like we have the circle here twisted, and so we have the observer, the present time, and then we have the future and the past cone, right? And that's what the universe, what they're starting to see is that light intersected with the circle, what they call the Big Bang, right? The Big Bang, and I like to use that as a euphemism for, like, God penetrated the circle, right? So the circle, you could say, as like it's the womanly principle, right? The circle, the whole, right? That God penetrated it, right? With the one, God's the one, and then light happened, which is, the that sacred stuff that creates all of matter and everything. So, like, again, you can expound on this in so many ways. And so Ra's saying, just picture a circle. A circle never ceases. It is always present. Like we could be here in this little part of the whole galaxy, right? But still, this little part is still part of this microcosm, is still part of the macrocosm, right? We're all swirling around, swirling around in this circle. And it just, like what Einstein discovered, was that energy converts into mass and mass converts into energy. And it just goes around in a circle forever and ever and ever, right? So there's so many ways you can expound upon that. And then Ra goes on, like I was showing you the cycles, or I'm sorry, the different levels that we could all go down. So the first level is what they call the cycle of awareness. So God became aware at this level, or you could say, if we break it down to a scientific kind of experiment, like what CERN is trying to do, right? Like CERN is trying to break down deep and trying to discover the first molecules, right? Like they're trying to discover what they call the God particle, right? They want to see God's first awareness, the first motion in the universe, the Big Bang, right? They're trying to recreate that Big Bang so they can see the very first reaction that happened there. And I don't think they'll ever find it, because there's infinite levels of just each of these levels has its own infinite levels. Just like in three levels, like in 3D, we're here on this level, and there's infinite amount of understandings that we all have, right? Like there's so many different levels just in one level, right? Like you could say there's just so many levels here, and you could say you're at the top of 3D, but don't worry, there's another level to always continue down. So the second would be the cycle of growth. So that's like plants and trees and stuff. That's where we start getting into the concepts of the Fibonacci spiral, and all that kind of stuff, the golden angle, and things that I'll be sharing with you in my next video, Proof of God, and how that cycle plays out. And then we come to the 3D experience, which is where we are now, which is the cycle of self-awareness, where we're starting to use free will, and we have freedom to hurt each other or to help each other, to serve others or to serve ourselves, to control others or to free others. So that's why it's so chaotic, at least seemingly chaotic And that's why a lot of us are confused, because we're on this level of like, we're trying to figure out, what are we? Like, we don't even know our own history of humanity. Like, we keep finding out these missing links, and we don't even know where we came from, who made us, how we came to be. Like, we're just like this giant anomaly, that's a part of nature, where nature is very, harmonious, and they're very like, like, they stick with what they know. But we as humans, we don't know what we know. We don't know who we are. There's even people that are confused about their biological gender. Like, they're just like, I was born a boy, but maybe I'm a girl, or I was born a girl, maybe I'm a boy. I'm so confused. And so we're all like trying to figure out who we are at this point. And then the next cycle, the fourth, is what they call the cycle of love or understanding. So that's like the heavenly kind of cycle. That's like Christ coming and ruling, for 1,000 years of peace. That's like the age of enlightenment, right? Where we start to understand what our universe is, what we are, what our bodies are, what our spirit is, how we really start to use love in different ways. And then the fifth would be what they call the cycle of light or wisdom, which is sort of the cycle where people have made it to that they start to pierce, like, you could pierce these many layers and make it up into here in the fifth level, where you start to become wise, and what they call like enlightenment, right? And then the sixth would be the cycle of unity. So this is where you start to realize, because right now we're like, oh, it's evil, versus good, right? Evil versus good down here. But then when you get to a higher understanding of things, you realize there is really no evil or good, because all serve the creator. All of it is a swirling mass, right? The yin yang, right? Like, there's the black, there's the darkness, and the light. And without either or, there is no friction, there is no electricity, there is no magnetism. Because what do we need? We need positives and negatives, right? For the universe to continue to spin around and around and around, it needs a positive and electric charge. So that's why you could say, oh, God allows evil or whatever, because it's all a process. We're all going through this process to get to the very top of the mountain, right? And unity is what I'm shooting for, because that is a hard level to beat, because it's a level that you have to stop looking at people as either evil or good, and you just have to start thinking in terms of positive or negative. Like, is this a positive thought that I have, or is it a negative thought? And how can I reconcile the two to become a balanced individual? Like, some people would say, oh, anger is a negative thought, but you know not ever becoming angry here in this world could also have adverse effects. It could also be a negative thing, right? Like, if you're never angry and you never show that emotion, you keep it inside you, then it could start kind of like you're like a bubbling, like a kettle on a stove. It's just, you're just bubbling up, and eventually it explodes, right? Or like turns to cancer or something. There's a reason for everything. And at the very top of it, with unity, this is the sort of cycle that I'm trying to break through. This is the cycle that I'm trying to pierce, is that uh what we think of as evil, like some people here would think of like yoga as evil, or like the cult as evil, and like Raw as evil or whatever. But like, really, like Ross says, everything serves the creator eventually, because we're all in this giant circle, right? We're all in this circle, and everything's enclosed in it, but we're just like a giant onion, and we're peeling away layers of truth, okay, to make it up to the very top of the mountain. And so, continuing on, like I said, you could take any verse and you can just expound on it like infinite amount of ways. Okay. Yeah. If you have any questions, go ahead and post it. But this, and then they go into the history of what Ra is. Ra says, "We are those of the Confederation who 11,000 of your years ago came to two of your planetary cultures, which were at that time closely in touch with the creation of the one creator. It was our naive belief," and this is where it starts getting into the origin of the Illuminati or the deep state or the secret societies, the Masons or whatever you want to call them. This is the origins of it. That's why they use Ra still today. You could see the eye of Ra as a symbol on all of their logos of their companies, all of their secret societies. You could even still see that Egyptian symbology or symbolism, throughout even Washington, D.C. So our thrones, even the Vatican, right? So our thrones of power here on earth all evolve around Ra symbolism. Okay. So keep that in mind when we continue, because I'll show you why that is, why they're so obsessed with Ra. And it's not because Ra is evil, but I'll show you why. So Ra says, "It was our naive belief that we could learn by direct contact, and the free will distortions of individual feeling or personality were in no danger. We thought of being disturbed as these cultures were already closely aligned with an all embracing belief in the liveness or consciousness of all. We came and were welcomed by the peoples whom we wished to serve." This is talking about the Egyptians. "We attempted to aid them in technical ways having to do with the healing of mind body spirit complex distortions through the use of the crystal appropriate to the distortion placed within a certain appropriate series of ratios of time, space, material." And I will show you what that means in my next video. "Thus were the pyramids created. We found that and that's why they're so obsessed with the pyramids still. We found that the technology was reserved largely for those with the effectual mind-body distortion of power." This is where the Illuminati comes from, okay? "This was not intended by the law of one. We left your peoples. The group that was to work with those in the area of South America, as you call that portion of your sphere, gave up not so easily," okay? And this will be a whole nother subject that we'll have to go into at another time. That's why people in the South American people had pyramids. And that's why there's, dozens of pyramids there as well. So they returned, okay? And this is all parts of their history that you can find out for yourself, which we could go into later. "We did not." So Ra did not return. "However, we have never left your vibration due to our responsibility for the changes in consciousness we had first caused and then found distorted in ways not relegated to the law of one. We attempted to contact the rulers of the land to which we had come, that land which you call Egypt, or in some areas, the Holy Land." Okay. So this now starts to get into Israel, the Jews, the Holy Land, all that stuff. It's all coming together like a giant rabbit hole. Okay. So in the 18th dynasty, as it is known in your records of space-time distortions, we were able to contact a pharaoh, as you would call him. The man was small in life experience on your plane and was what this instrument would call a wanderer, which we'll go into another time as well. Thus, this mind body spirit complex received our communication distortions and was able to blend his distortions with our own. This young entity had been given a vibratory complex of sound, which vibrated in honor of a prosperous god, as this mind-body complex, which we call instrument for convenience, would call amun. So that's the where we get the when you pray and you say amen, amen. This is where it originates from. You ever wondered why we say amen? This is the origin of that. Um, the entity decided that this name, because Amun was one of the first people that Ra contacted. Okay, and Amun was trying to teach the law of one to these people, and this is where we start to see the branches of all religions start to stem from. The entity decided that this name, being in honor of one among many gods, was not acceptable for inclusion in his vibratory sound complex. Thus, he changed his name to one which honored the sun disk. And so that's why they were worshippers of the sun. This distortion, called Aten, was a close distortion to our reality as we understand our own nature of mind, body, spirit complexes. So, mind, body, spirit complex is just a way to say like a free will, sentient being, right? A human, so to speak. However, it does not come totally into alignment with the intended teach learning which was sent. This entity, Akhenaten, became convinced that the vibration of one was the true spiritual vibration and thus decreed the law of one. So here we go. We're starting to understand why these pharaohs, remember, these pharaohs were revered and worshipped as gods. Because why? Because they had that power. They had this power as like Moses had power, right? Moses could part the Red Sea. Moses could turn the water into blood, right? They had this power. That's why they were worshipped as these entities. Okay. Um, However, this entity's beliefs were accepted by very few. His priests gave lip service only, without the spiritual distortion towards seeking. The peoples continued in their beliefs. When this entity was no longer in this density, again, the polarized beliefs in the many gods came into their own and continued so until the one known as Muhammad delivered the peoples into a more intelligible distortion of mind body spirit relationships. Okay. So a lot to go into on that subject. But we're starting to see the history kind of our civilization becoming pieced together. Okay. Because if we look at our historians, like, we don't even know how the pyramids were created. We have no idea. Some idiot will tell you, "Oh, it was a bunch of slaves that did it," but obviously, it's impossible for that to be. If you really do your research and not just listen to a bunch of idiots, then you realize like how miraculous the pyramids actually are. Like how the even if you look at the ratios of the slant of the pyramid or the diameter of it and all these things, it corresponds directly to like the speed of light, the ratio of the earth, the ratio of the sun, and all these things, like mathematical ratios that we still are discovering today. And what they had knowledge of, you know, 10,000 years ago. So a lot of mysteries still being uncovered within the pyramids, which Ra is claiming to have built. So, again, let me continue on because I want to get through all the history that Ra explains. Then we can at least get through the history in this first episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. So, the next question is, then at this time you did not contact them. Can you answer the same questions I just asked with respect to your next attempt to contact the Egyptians? And Ross says, the next attempt was prolonged. It occurred over a period of time. The nexus or center of our efforts was a decision upon our parts that there was a sufficient calling to attempt to walk among your peoples as brothers. We laid this plan before the council of Saturn, offering ourselves as service-oriented wanderers of the type which land directly upon the inner planes without incarnative processes. Thus, we emerged or materialized in physical chemical complexes representing as closely as possible our natures, this effort being to appear as brothers and spend a limited amount of time as teachers of the law of one. For there was an ever stronger interest in the sun body, and this vibrates in concordance with our particular distortions. So, this could explain why a lot of the hieroglyphics of the Egyptian stuff were kind of showing these beings as like some of them were like seemed to be like part animal or whatever. Like I don't know how they materialized to these people, but the way that they were sort of, I guess, like seeing them as like that's how they describe them through their history and their hieroglyphs and stuff like that. So, and then it says we discovered that for each word we could utter, there were 30 impressions we gave by our very being, which confused those entities we had come to serve. After a short period, we removed ourselves from these entities and spent much time attempting to understand how best to serve those to whom we had offered ourselves in love and light. The ones who were in contact with that geographical entity, which you know of as Atlantis, had conceived of the potentials for healing by use of the pyramid-shaped entities. And considering this and making adjustments for the difference in the distortion complexes of the two geographical cultures, as you would call them, we went before the council again, offering this plan to the council as an aid to the healing and longevity of those in the area you know of as Egypt. In this way, we hope to facilitate the learning process as well as an offering philosophy articulating the law of one. Again, the council approved. So then they came again to the Egyptians. And so they so let's just skip over some of the stuff. They said first they created the Great Pyramid, which was formed approximately 6,000 of your years ago. Then in sequence over the course of 1,500 years, they built the other pyramids. So meanwhile, as they're building it, the information concerning initiation and healing by crystal was being given. The one known as Akhenaten was able to perceive this information without significant distortion and for a time moved, shall we say, heaven and earth in order to invoke the law of one and to order the priesthood of these structures in accordance with the distortions of initiation and true compassionate healing. This was not to be long lasting. At this entity's physical dissolution from your third density physical plane, as we have said before, our teachings became quickly perverted, our structures returning once again to the use of the so-called royal or those with distortions of power. So, breaking that down, expounding upon that, this is where the Illuminati originated from. So it was Ra's naive belief that they, as these very, very benevolent entities, that they could come down to humanity, which is very primitive and even savage in a lot of ways, that they could teach them these very important discussions or understandings of the creator and the creation, and give them technology, not even like technology as we see it, with silicon and whatever, metal and stuff. Like this is technology of a more of a metaphysical state, right? That's why these darkness, this Illuminati, that's why they still perform rituals that have been passed down from generation to generation to generation, all the way back from the Egyptian times. That's why they continue to use Egyptian structures and Egyptian beliefs in all of their ceremonies. You will always see the Eye of Ra in a lot of these ceremonies. You will see the obelisk as symbols of power that were symbols of power back in the Egyptian times. Why? Because what Ra taught them was initially being taught to them for good, right? To serve others. But again, the Creator gives us that free will, and which they thought that they would use it for good, but they actually used it to start to control the populace. They started to use it to control civilization. That's why these pharaohs and things, right? Like it became a priesthood. It became like they were worshipped as God instead of worshiping the one God, right? They started worshiping the pharaohs who understood this power and put it into practice and started, you know, whatever you say, you could call it manifesting reality or doing miraculous things, right? Just like you could even look at the Bible, like the Pharaoh, the priests of Pharaoh, when they were going up against Moses, were still able to do some sort of miraculous things as well, right? Like they could change their rod into snakes and things like that. So like they still had that power, but they basically perverted the teachings of what Ra was trying to give them, and they turned it into a negative thing. Just like anything in this world has a polarity. There's always two sides to the coin. You can take anything in this life and you can say, "Oh, it's a bad thing or it's a good thing." But really it's always both, right? Is the particle a wave or is it a particle? It's both, right? So that's the higher understanding. um, like for instance, you could take like a gun, right? A gun could have a very negative meaning or it could have a very positive meaning. You could take the internet, it could be a very negative thing or it could be a very positive thing. You could take the television, it could be very negative, with bad images and whatnot, or positive where there's information being carried out. There's a negative and positive side to everything. And so Ra believed that by teaching these people the positive, um, that they would help humanity. But really, humanity, being who we are, we always like to mess up everything, right? They distorted it, towards a distortion towards power. So that's why people think that Ra is this evil concept, this evil being, because uh, it's associated with all this Illuminati, deep state kind of stuff, right? But if we break free of that fear that we have of it and start to learn, that's why Ra came back and they're trying to reconcile, um, because they basically come back and say, "Oh, we're sorry for basically creating the Illuminati because we gave them the knowledge to have this control over you, which wasn't our intention, but that's how it turned out." And that's why they finally came back in the 80s and they're like, "Hey, we're going to now give you what we truly try to teach and what we truly try to show you the true path, the right hand path, where we start to serve others and start to see the truth, the infinite truth for what it is. Then that'll help us break free of the chains that all this negative beings has put upon us right now." And so that's the whole purpose of why I'm trying to bring this out. I'm not trying to like bring this out just to uh for entertainment or whatever. I think this is really the key for our evolution. Like it says, if we continue through the prophecies of the Bible, right? There's an angel that comes down, right? It says in the book of Revelation, there's an angel that reveals all the mysteries of God, right? And if there's this new mystery that's being revealed, I believe that this is it. Okay. Plus everything else is being revealed. Like I said, I'm almost done with my new video, Proof of God, which will reveal a lot of truth to everyone, where, we don't have to fight over if we believe there's a God or not. I think it could be 100% proven with the discoveries that we have made today with math and physics and science, discoveries in only in those subjects. It doesn't even have, we don't even have to go into the faith aspect of it. We can already prove it today. And this is just like, to me, it's like the cherry on top, you know, like this is how we break free of this darkness, because I've applied these teachings in my life, and um, everything has changed. Everything has changed for me. I don't know if I'm manifesting my reality or whatever, breaking free of their illusion. You could call it whatever you want, but to me, it's been a miracle, you know? And so let's see. Yeah. So to continue on, just to give a few more verses, the questioner asks, could you give me a little more detail about your role with the Egyptians? And Ra says, the identity of the vibration Ra is our identity. We as a group, or what you would call a social memory complex, so they're called a social memory complex, kind of like, you know, like you could think of, remember the story of Enoch in the city of Zion, like they were all together unified, right? As a social memory complex. They all work together, all their memories are together, right? So they made contact with a race of your planetary kind, which you call Egyptians. Others from our density made contact at the same time in South America and the so called lost cities, where their attempts to contribute to the law of one. We spoke to one who heard and understood and was in a position to decree the law of one. However, the priests and peoples of that era quickly distorted our message, robbing it of the, shall we say, compassion with which unity is informed by its very nature. Since it contains all, it cannot abhor any. When we were no longer able to have appropriate channels through which to enunciate the law of one, we removed ourselves from the now hypocritical position which we had allowed ourselves to be placed in. And other myths, shall we say, other understandings have more to do with polarity and the things of her vibrational complex, again, took over in that particular social complex. So, again, they came back to apologize for basically creating the Illuminati and what we see, you know, playing out even today in our world. Over, you know, 10,000 years later, we still see this hold, this control that the left-hand path has upon us. And the problem is there is no balance. You know, there's not that many right-hand path people out there. And so if we start to become, if we start to journey on that path, that right-hand path, we could start to affect our reality, and we can start to balance our you know, our universe and our planet, and start to become more in harmony with each other. But we have to become those ones, you know. We have to become like Neo in the Matrix and start to wake people up to this knowledge and everything. So does anyone have any questions or anything? Probably gonna get off pretty soon. Ra is a pre-Christ, a copycat saint, knew the story. Just don't the galactic. So on Fire Fully says Ra is pre-Christ, a copycat. Satan knew the story, just don't like the galactic stuff. Some makes sense. So like, I mean, you could call it Ra like a pre-Christ, but when we get into the material more, you actually learn that Ra is basically in the same group as Christ. So think of it like, so like we as human, like it's like sort of our natural evolution to group together and become and form a government, right? Like that's always going to be the evolution of a conscious species, right? We start to form a hierarchy, a government, right? And so we could create order, because the universe wants to create order, right? It always wants to form or in an orderly pattern. So if you look at the higher levels of things, you can even look at, you know, the first book in Genesis, where they're saying, where it's not just one God singular talking, is saying we have made, man in our image, so there is many of them. Of course, the Bible doesn't specifically state how many, or what this organization is called or whatever. We have a very simplistic understanding, a very primitive understanding of what that is. We can only guess to what that might look like, or how that structure is set up, or that hierarchy is set up. But if we logically look at it, from like a consciousness standpoint, is say that these beings, if we look at the universe, is really billions and billions and billions of years old, right? They say 13.75 billion years old. And if we think of an evolutionary process, you would have to think maybe throughout that, almost 14 billion years old, maybe there was another random event, quote unquote, of an evolutionary process that created a free will conscious being, out there. And if that's the case, how many times has it happened um, around the endless, infinite universe? I think there's an equation for that, of how many actually self-conscious, conscious planets, or you know, uh, universes out there that there could be, just using math alone. And there's like literally millions of planets out there that probably have a conscious state, at least maybe similar to our own. And so it'd be very ignorant and arrogant of us to be like, throughout this 14 billion years, that God has only played one time with a consciousness being called a human. So it makes sense to me that there would be these other beings out there that have already come along and have gone through that evolutionary process, right? And so they have evolved to the step where it's taken them almost 3 billion years to get to. Uh, so you could say, yes, Ra is a sort of a pre-Christ, because they did come, way before Christ. But then if they became before Christ, they can't really be a copycat. Um, what it's saying is that the law of one, there's only one truth out there, and every per every person's perception of that truth is a distortion of that one truth. Okay. Truth will always be singular. Truth will always be infinite. Truth will always be eternal. Okay. It's a circle. It's one thing. And there's many ways you could cut that circle, right? You could cut a pie an infinite amount of ways, but it's still a pie, right? So the truth is like that pie, where you can intersect as much as you want. You can put whatever you want into it, but it's always going to be that pie, that circle, right? So that's the truth, is that uh infinity and eternity, it's all really the same. It all comes to just light. You can even look at the science, right? Like everything is just made of light. Everything, okay? And everything vibrates, right? Our words vibrate. The trees outside vibrate. The wind vibrates. Everything's a vibration of that light, which is creating matter. Okay. Matter is just slowed down light. Okay. So that's why everything is entropic. Everything eventually goes back to dust, goes back to the molecules, goes back to light. It breaks all down. It's a circular, right? It's always going around and around and around, like a spinning torus, right? Um, so yeah, hope that you will start to understand it. This is very, 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 very deep stuff. This is as deep as anything you will ever hear. Okay. Any other book out there, any other story, any other myth, it's nothing compared to what the law of one is trying to teach us. Um, and this is only the very beginning. I've only really just went over the history, which is like the most inconsequential thing that's a part of the law of one, because there's so much to learn inside of it. And I know it might make a lot of people mad because it goes against their beliefs, right? It goes against how many years you've been stuck inside this box that you call, that's filled with your belief system. But if we're to suspend our disbelief for a moment and start to really look into the stuff, then we can evolve our consciousness 100-fold. Okay, we can make it to the next step. We can make it to that fourth level. What Christ has promised, if we are like children, that we can make it. The kingdom of God is within you. We can find out the truth for ourselves. It's always been inside of us this entire time. Okay, so thank you guys for listening and whatnot. This series called Down the Rabbit Hole is going to be very in depth, very eye opening, very maybe scary for people that maybe aren't ready to hear this stuff. But I hope that I can explain it in a way where you can understand it, at least maybe a little bit, because I hope to get to us to that top level at some point. We got to make it up the mountain, and making up the mountain it's a never easy thing. It's very, very, very difficult, and people think you're crazy trying to get to the top, right? But once you're at the top, you have a circular understanding. You see the whole eternity in a circle, right? We see everything in a 360-degree angle. We see it all together. Okay. So I think I've rambled on enough today. Any last questions? Thanks for the questions, guys, by the way, and thanks for sticking around. Hope you don't think I'm too crazy, but again, look at anyone could go to this site and read it for themselves if you don't want to believe it. It's lawof1.info. So it's for free online. You could browse each session. You could even browse by a category of what they talk about. It even talks about Christ in here. So if you want to understand more about Christ and Christ's mission, this would be a good place to learn that in-depth knowledge that no other book in this world will give you. Okay. And so, anyway, guys, I'm going to end it here. Thanks for listening, everyone. And probably do this every week, hopefully, if time permits it and whatnot. But the next week, we'll start to get into more of the deep verses, because I want to teach you guys how if you think of like the original, the OG religion of humanity, like it wasn't Christianity, it wasn't the Jewish religion, it wasn't any of these religions. The very OG, the original thought was the law of one. Okay, and this is the very, very origins of all religion, all priesthood, everything. Okay, you can even look at the Abrahamic religions. Abraham came from Egypt, okay, and he had the priesthood of the Egyptians. That's why he was powerful. That's why God favored him, because he kept that holy priesthood that when he escaped from Egypt, that he took with him, and that created the Abrahamic religions, which again branched off from this law of one truth. So the law of one is the very, very beginning of that truth. And so this is the closest we will get to truly understanding the creator and the creation, is through this material that they call the law of one, which is given through the raw entity. So yep, so no more question anything. I'm glad that you guys listen, and pay attention to my channel. If you don't have the notification bell, hit that, because I kind of do these randomly and stuff. So if you want to be notified when to join in, then let me know. If even one of you wants to join in on a stream with me next time, let me know. We could arrange that as well. I'm more than happy to have people come on the show with me and talk with me as well. So that might be a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm almost finished with one of my videos as well. So it's gonna be called Proof of God, and it's gonna be very eye-opening. Like I said, I use science, logic, and math to prove the existence of a creator, and so we don't have to, we don't have to just believe in it. We actually prove it, and I think that's going to change the world, and I hope it does. So anyway, guys, thanks for listening. I love you all. I'll talk with you all later. All right, see ya.